in the whole process of data collection and aggregation, the bridge between the users and the data collectors and aggregators is usually implemented through some legal agreements, commonly known as consent or sometimes as terms of service. Now, in conventional settings, these agreements contain a dump of dense legalese, uh, hidden in multiple clauses, analogically similar to those found in uh, policy documents like LIC policy documents or mutual fund investment documents. Ideally, the consent should be informed. I mean, and it should help the user to exercise their control over their personal data. Now, uh, in order to exercise the control that respect privacy, user must have a clear idea through this consent or whatever terms and services they need to accept before availing the services. Should include types or categories of data that are being collected and how the data that's collected is going to be used or processed. Hmm. If it is not explicitly possible to uh, mention the purpose in case of retrospective data analysis, at least the context should be clearly mentioned through the consent or uh, terms of services. Apart from that, it should also clearly provide some idea of other entities or individuals with whom this collected data may be shared by the principal collector, like who is collecting the data at the first place. And finally, users must have an idea about the consequences of the failure of providing some personal data. What will be uh, the consequences? How much uh, benefit will be lost, or how far it will, uh, I mean, a portion of data, if users don't want to share, then how much service he or she could be losing sometime. So the main challenge behind designing such a formal contract, because as you have seen, I mean, till now the consent or the terms of service documents contains a dense legalese, a hell lot of things, which are mostly it's very difficult to read. So, but at the same time, as we are considering about the informed consent, so it should contain enough information for it to be meaningful to the users. Enough in the sense that it should let users know what they are consenting to, and obviously, it should clearly identify the risk of privacy compromise if there is any. At the same time, it should be precise enough to be practically readable. I mean, if it contains a lot of things, several clauses, which meaning may not be clear apparently, so users may lose interest, and that this all or none policy will again come. But we want to move ahead of that in order to continue the advancement of such technologies and handling the proper handling of the emerging privacy issues and other related issues. So, as a food for thought, you may consider this challenge. I mean, how to design a consent agreement that would be broad enough to cover a range of possible purposes for which the collected data may be used. Like as I mentioned, in case of retrospective data analysis, it may not be easy, very easy to provide a clear picture of the future uh, purpose of utilizing this data that has been currently collected from the user. against the service that is being provided right now. So it will be a very challenging task. But as a professional, we should look into solve this challenge. So I'm giving you food for thought. This will be a good um, food for your thought process. Now, sometimes, I mean, in some uh, cases, um, you may need to bypass consent. And there are several such examples that when you cannot expect that users will provide consent. I mean, you cannot do that type of processing uh, uh, by taking consent. You need to bypass. A very popular example is A/B testing. Like all of you know, whenever a a new version of a typical web services are launched, before that, it is an usual practice that several versions are designed, and usually as an experimental basis they are projected, they are displayed to different section of users, different versions are shown to different users to understand which one will be more acceptable. So usually there are two versions, A and B, and some users say see the version A, and some other users, set of users, see version B of the same web services. It basically deals with interfaces, different interfaces to finalize which interface will be launched. And so this kind of thing is very popular in software industry. Now, if you ask me that is it ethical, because the users may not know that they are part of this experiment. They are viewing an interface which may not be um, may not remain as the final launched interface. So this is quite acceptable in the sense, because at the end of the day, it is not harming anybody, and it is doing some good thing to finalize a better alternative that is going to be launched in future. There is another example, like there are some research experiment usually is done when there is mm, requirement of that um, experiment uh, compels that researcher to bypass consent, because this type of research cannot be done by taking consent of users. Like as an example, the Facebook Cornell study on emotional contagion that was performed in 2013, and it was considered to be a very important, I mean, important experiment, which gives an insight, um, psychological insight, very important psychology. What was done in that experiment, that um, the news feed of selected Facebook users were manipulated intentionally. Some users were shown more positive results, and others were shown more negative results or disappointing or sad articles without explicitly uh, uh, without explicit knowledge of those users. Now it was found that the people shown more negative articles were found to share or post more negative articles themselves. So this was the contagion, emotional contagion that was proving. Now, as I've said, this experiment was very important in the sense that provides a good insight. But at the same time, there was lots of debate when this paper get published about the ethical issues, because none of the users were aware of the fact that they are part of this experiment, and they are in their Facebook news feed were intentionally manipulated. So it may not be considered to be ethical uh, in some sense. So this type of thing you need to consider, because the experiment needs to bypass consent, but whether that is allowed or acceptable, whether we should go for this type of experiment, even though it is going to give us some important result. So here is the ethical issue we need to consider. There is no black and white answer, binary answer, yes or no. But you should think and discuss among yourself to understand the ethical issues involved in such experiments. There may be several other such experiments you may get indulged. Now, finally, um, since this consent and everything is coming to respect users' privacy, and what would happen in case of any legal dispute of alleged breach of data privacy? So, so consent cannot alone protect our personal data. What would happen when some dispute occurs? So, traditional laws that are available in several countries hardly covers this type of emerging privacy issues we were discussing. Because this technology development is so fast, and these issues are coming so fast, and many people may not be aware of this fact, how to deal with this. So similarly, these type of issues are found to be uncovered by the existing law. So what will be the solution? So the answer could be kind of regulation. So in next few 1 or 2 classes, we'll see how regulation can do something to solve this type of legal dispute, and how the regulation can help, or how far it can help to protect users' personal data in case of this type of emerging privacy issues. Thank you.